part that I have rewired has been like managing a team.
Mhm.
Again, I didn't think I was going to be it's such a big part. That was going to be such a big part of my business was managing this team and managing these awesome people because I thought I had all the passion I needed. I was like, oh, I got it. We could do this. No, you actually have to manage people, humans.
Yeah.
So, as much as I try to resist the whole HR thing, there are elements of the corporate world that I have brought into my business that I really had to rewire myself.
Bars, bars, bars. I love those three aspects you brought up. And yes, kudos to the processes because you
Ooh,
will
girl.
need them. If it's anybody besides you in your business, you will need a process.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have anybody, you still need a process, right? You
You
don't want to
still
like
need a
you
process.
don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time you sit down to do something.
Exactly.
I don't.
Exactly. And I was like, I thought I had enough energy for everything, every role. I was like, I got it. We can
Mm,
do this. It's no problem. But I really had to rewire myself. And that didn't come until much later in my business. And I thought, a lot of times you think stuff is going to happen overnight. It takes time. It wasn't until
yes.
like I was a good 4 years in where I was like, wait a minute. There has to be an easier way. So yeah, that's where I'm at now,
Yeah,
thankfully.
I love that. I really do love that, Christine, because yeah. Hello and welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I'm your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group. And we have a very, very special guest with us today, Christine Edwards Pitkin. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad you are here with us today. Christine and I have known each other in the Charlotte spaces now for a few years. I don't even know, maybe 4 or 5, maybe longer than that. And I invited her to be on the Analytical Rewired. She's gonna talk about expectations versus reality, business seasons for a professional services firm. And I know we each have a lot to hone in about that since we are both professional services firms. And it has been a season, I will say, in the last year with all these changes that we are seeing in our industries and perspective spaces. So, again, Christine, welcome. Why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and let our listeners know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Christine Edwards Pitkin. I'm the founder and principal consultant at Civility Localized, and we are a community engagement consulting firm headquartered in Charlotte. And we got our start in 2018. My background is in local government, and I've always just had a passion for, understanding how things work, helping get resources to people, and just kind of being a little bit of a policy nerd. And I somehow ended up, in the entrepreneurial space. And like I said, been doing that since 2018 and I love it.
Awesome, awesome. So, right before we hit the record button, we were talking about some policies, right? Some laws that are affecting us in the world. Like, how deep do you get into policies or politics, or is it everything? Is it more business focused? Is it more gender focused, or just all of the above?
That's a good question. I think as a business owner, it's important for us to know what's going on. Even if your work is not related to any kind of policy or politics, it's just important to be in the know and understand how certain things will impact you, not only as a business owner, but as a citizen or a resident of where you live. And so the kind of work that we do at Civility Localized is actually community engagement. And what that looks like is a lot of times we'll do surveys or focus groups, or we'll facilitate town hall style meetings on behalf of our local government. Because a lot of times sometimes there's a little bit of distrust, in our government systems. And, that goes back a long, long time, like, and the government just needs help. They oftentimes needs help going out, finding friends in the community and building bridges in the community. And so that's the gap that we fill. So I don't think all business owners need to have, their finger on the pulse 100% of the time, but at least 80-85% of the time, you need to know what's going on, because there could be a lot of decisions that are being made that could impact you and your business.
I agree in bars for that. All bars. I agree with that. And I will say, Christine and I also share in an organization that we became alumni of, which is Goldman Sachs 10K program. And I will say, it really wasn't until I graduated from 10K, which has been almost 4 years now,
Wow.
that I paid attention to the business laws. I really got into it, especially when COVID was happening and the bill came out to try to help everyone that was going through that time, and some of the aspects of it to help us small business owners. That's when I really started paying attention,
Hmm.
as being a business owner myself. But up until before that, I really didn't have a clue
Right.
as to how this works, and what was going on, and how you get in contact with your representatives to really advocate and voice your concerns about what's happening to you.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at some of the things that have happened over the past 5 years, just changes in the federal government, changes at the Supreme Court level, they have been having a trickle down effect on small
Mhm.
businesses, especially when you consider Black and Brown businesses, women-owned businesses like us. When you look at some of the affirmative action decisions that have been made in the past few years, you think, oh, that's so far away, that's not going to affect me, but it's really starting to trickle down. I'll give you an example. So I work in the government contracting space, and 90% of our contracts are won through the competitive bidding process. And so being a minority certified firm is so important for me to get any kind of new work, or even to network with people that are in the same space. So when the decision was made to make changes to the affirmative action program, that also made changes to the SBA, the Small Business Administration. They made changes to the 8A program and the different certifications that were available for minority and for women-owned businesses. So, it causes a disruption. Even if it doesn't affect you personally, people are going to be more aware. They're going to be fearful and confused and not really know what's going on. So that makes it hard to do business sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I've noticed the trickle down effect, and I swear it's like being on a roller coaster every month now. But but we just deal with it, and we do what we can. Like I said, we're reaching out to our representatives, and it's good that they're accessible, and they actually do respond, or their aides respond a lot of times. But at least our voice is getting heard. Let me switch gears a little bit and talk about being in business itself. What is something that you enjoy about being a business owner?
Hmm. What do I enjoy about being a business owner? I enjoy the freedom of being able to set my own schedule, and the freedom of being able to sometimes choose the kind of work that I want to do and the projects that I am going to be involved with. It doesn't always work out that way, because sometimes you have to do the projects that are going to keep you in business.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're going to have to work on the schedule that your clients need you to work on. But I really do believe that I wouldn't be able to have the same level of freedom if I was not a full-time business owner. So I love the freedom of it.
I agree as well. It's not easy. I tell people all the time, like, you sure you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, you might want to stay doing what you're doing. I
Right.
try to warn people it is not all glamorous what people are seeing on TikTok, I guess.
Mhm.
That is not the case. There's like we just talked about the policies and the reform and how it's affecting you and your business. And we just had this one big beautiful bill get passed, right? And so that's bringing some other complexities now that we
Right.
got deal with as well. So I love it as well. The freedom is great and being able, to choose, somewhat choose who you want to work with. Sometimes you can't control that. But I do love it as well. I echo the same thing you did. Um, what are some things you've had to totally rewire about your business? So you may have started out doing certain things or felt a certain way about things you implemented in your business, and now, what are you, 8 years in or 7 years in?
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years, and she just had an anniversary, guys.
Yes.
7 years in, what have you changed? What have you transformed in your business?
7 years in, what have I transformed? Okay, so when I got started in 2018, I didn't go full time in my business until 2020.
Mm,
So for that first 2 years, it was a hustle and it was a grind.
mm,
When I was first starting out, it was all about laying the foundation, getting the website up and running, getting our marketing up and running, understanding what our services were going to be, and really just getting in front of as many people as possible to talk about Civility Localized and talk about all the services that we could offer. So, really, that first couple of years was a hustle. And when I say hustle, I mean working I was working full time, but I was spending, I think, 3 hours. I think on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I would go to a co-working space after work from like 5 to 8 or 9.
mm.
And I literally would work on my business 3 days a week. Sometimes I would wake up early and work on it. I wasn't working on it during my work hours, but I was spending a lot of time laying the foundation and everything. So I think what has completely rewired since then is that now, since I have that foundation, I don't do the overnight hours. I try not to anyway. When it comes to government contracts, which that's how I get my business a lot of times, you are staying up late to write proposals and doing things at the last minute. So I had to really rewire that if I was going to operate at a higher level, and had to decide, okay, you're not doing that. You're going to have somebody help you do that. Um, what else did I rewire? I think I was so resistant to creating a company that was like my job that I had left.
Yeah.
And I was really I resisted it for a few years, maybe like year 4. It wasn't until like 2022 where I actually started to, okay, what are our values? What are our processes? What's going to be our culture? You know what I mean? Like org chart. That's your wheelhouse. I know I'm speaking your language, right? So I had resisted it for so long. But once I finally put that structure in place, I said, "Oh, this is why organizations are set up this way because it works."
Yeah.
I finally had a real org chart. I finally had real hiring processes and everything. And so things really started to open up. So that I had to rewire my brain for that for sure. Um, and the last part that I have rewired has been like managing a team.
Mm.
Again, I didn't think I was going to be it's such a big part. That was going to be such a big part of my business was managing this team and managing these awesome, awesome people because I thought I had all the passion I needed. I was like, oh, I got it. We could do this. No, you actually have to manage people, humans.
Yeah.
So, as much as I try to resist the whole HR thing, there are elements of the corporate world that I have brought into my business that I really had to rewire myself.
Bars, bars, bars. I love those three aspects you brought up. And yes, kudos to the processes because you
Ooh,
will
girl.
need them. If it's anybody besides you and your business, you will need a process.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have anybody, you still need a process, right? You
You
don't want to
still
like
need a
you
process.
don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time you sit down to do something.
Exactly.
I don't.
Exactly. And I was like, I thought I had enough energy for everything, every role. I was like, I got it. We can do
Mm,
this. It's no problem. But I really had to rewire myself. And that didn't come until much later in my business. And I thought, a lot of times you think stuff is going to happen overnight. It takes time. It wasn't until
yes.
like I was a good 4 years in where I was like, wait a minute. There has to be an easier way. So yeah, that's where I'm at now,
Yeah,
thankfully.
I love that. I really do love that, Christine, because yeah, when we first start out, we don't necessarily realize that. I don't know why. We just don't realize that. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
I want to come out today and be like GM and Ford. Why not? I mean, they just did it all
Exactly.
overnight. I can do it overnight too. No, that's not how this works. So yeah, I'm glad you realized that because a lot of people don't. That's why I say I challenge people who I speak with, and they're like, I want to do what you're doing. I'm like, are you sure? I don't
Right.
think
I
you
mean, and
do.
if you're lucky enough to be in business for as long as you have, you know, then you know the value of those processes and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. All right, cool, cool. Um, at this point, how do clients find you? So I know you're in the government contracting space. Are there particular agencies you work with? Does it matter if it's local, city, county level, state level, federal level? Anyone listening to this, like what type of agencies do you like to work with?
That's a great question. I think for firms like mine, I'm in the professional services space. So, a really good way to get found is to get certified. I'm going to go back to the certification every single time because, as a Black owned business and as a woman owned business, it's important to have that certification, and the public sector certifications are free. I look at certification as not only a sales tool, but also a marketing tool. Because when
Mhm.
you get certified, you get added to a vendor list. You get added to a list of vendors that are available and that can help meet those MBE goals and those diversity goals. So you're going to get contacted by firms, that you've never heard of before, and they will do cold outreach.
Yeah.
My
Yep.
first project was from a firm out of, I think, Boston, and they called me out of the blue, and thank goodness I picked up the phone. I always pick up the phone, by the way, even if it's spam, I just, because I'm curious. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
this could be the money calling. And so my very first contract came from a cold call, and they said, hey, we saw your name on the vendors list. Your website looks good. Let's talk about teaming together on a project. And so that's how people find me is through the vendor list, because we have a presence there. I also like to remind people when you get your LLC, there is not a box to check for race, and there's not a box to check for gender. And so the only way that they know that we're here is when we become certified,
Yeah.
through these certification programs. So I just think it's so important to use that as a tool, for marketing. Another awesome marketing tool, obviously, is social media. Making sure you have a good presence on social media. I think we're mostly on LinkedIn because we do B2B and B2G mostly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. I laughed when you said, there's no box to check because I don't know. I guess I was living underneath the rock until we went through our own certification for, I think it was MBE. And I had to prove that I am who I say I am. And I'm like, what do you
Yes.
mean? You're looking at me.
Right,
And I
exactly.
could not find any, I had to get a medical record, but all of our other documents that we have, passports, license, birth certificate, it is not, well, some
Yeah.
people, it is not
Mhm.
on there.
Right, right,
Not.
exactly. And so I think that that goes back to that policy discussion. We measure what we care about. So if you care about the Black businesses and the women businesses and the veteran-owned businesses, then you're going to measure it. And then the more that you see these programs going away, that should tell you what they care about, or what your leaders care about, because you measure what matters. So
True.
I just think it's so important to use that as a tool, not only a marketing tool, but certifications could also be a tool for funding, these grant programs. That's another way to kind of get found is through grant programs, accelerators, and just really just
Mhm.
flexing that muscle and strengthening that muscle of getting yourself out there over time.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, you really never know. And I did a lot more networking in the beginning because, like you said, it was like hustle mode, get the name, get the word out there. And, you get busy once you start, all the benefits of you hustling pay off. You get busy. And so lately, I've been trying to really insert myself out here in the marketplace and really get to know people I don't know, right? Meet new people because as a
Mhm.
business, you got to think like big businesses that we see, that's what they're doing. They just have major teams that do it. Like they
Yeah.
show up at conferences, they're showing up to webinars, they have, a social cocktail hour. So
Hmm.
I always tell people go to these events because you don't know who's going to be there, one. And then whoever you meet, they may introduce you to someone else 6 degrees down the line. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I knew such and such. They thought it would be good for us to meet each other. And you just never know how that happens. And that's how
Yeah.
you organically grow your business. Like people always ask me,
Yes.
well, how do you find clients? Christine just rattled off like 5 or 6 different ways. I just gave you guys three additional ways of how you
Exactly.
find clients. Yeah.
Conferences. I love the idea of going to conferences and not just going just to go, but have a plan, have a game plan in place. Who do you want to talk to at the conference? What sessions do you
Yeah.
want to go to? What sessions do you want to speak at? Pitching yourself, as a speaker and things like that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
As we wrap up here today, Christine, I'll ask you, how have you seen the industry shift over the years? So you can talk from the professional services B2B or the B2G, like how have you seen it shift?
Hmm. How have I seen it shift? I mean, without getting too political, it has just changed a lot in recent years
Mhm.
because of the shifting tides of what's important and where our public dollars are being invested. But even prior to that, I think that the government contracting space is similar to a lot of other spaces that have changed over time due to technology.
True.
You have younger people coming into the sector that are bringing new tools, new technology, new ways to communicate. One of the projects that I submitted for recently, I finally got some feedback on. And the feedback was that we did great in terms of our outreach plan looked good. We were right on target with the budget, but the firm that won was more tech enabled. They had more technology behind them.
What?
Um, and they were able to showcase that. And I was like, dang, okay. So I feel like that's kind of where we're shifting, and you always have to stay competitive,
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of how we change over time. The political landscape has changed, but also I think like the technology landscape has changed quite a bit.
Bars again. And I will echo that with the technology. I did a presentation earlier today on AI system stacking, and it was received really well. Some folks didn't really realize how competitive it has got, because there's a lot more AI tools besides Chat GPT out here in the marketplace. And there's a lot of younger companies coming in where they're seeing gaps. Doesn't matter if it's law offices, in healthcare industry, they
Mhm.
are seeing the gaps and they're fulfilling it with their own tools and their software. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a good time to be alive. I always say, like, I feel like some days I feel like we're in that early 2000s when the internet and .com was just, everybody was just getting a website. And
Yep.
it's like all this room and all this free space out here. And that's how I
Yep.
feel about the AI space right now. So I'm excited about it because
Yeah.
I know it's only going to help, all technology help ease our way of life, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
replace the humanistic aspect of life, but it helps makes things a little simpler and easier if it's used correctly.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. That is something I'm trying to infuse a lot more as well, not just to say we have it for the sake of having it, but how does it
Right.
increase productivity? How does it really generate time savings and cost savings overall over time?
Yeah.
Like in the next 3 to 4 years, like how does it really save us in what we're doing, time
Yeah.
and cost wise? So yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. I need to get access to that presentation. I'm so mad I missed it, but I need to sit down with you so I can understand how all of these AI tools work. So yeah.
Yeah, anytime. You know where to find me. Is there anything else you like to share with the audience? How can they reach you if they want to have, I don't know, if you have consultations or sign up to, book some time with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach me personally at meetchristine.co.
Okay.
There is an option on that website to book a call if you just want to chat, get to know each other. I do have some consultations available to learn about government contracts. And if you're interested in the civic space, I have a program called the Civic Impact Academy, which is launching cohort 2, which we're so excited about. It's
Yay.
all about growing civic leaders in North Carolina. And the cohort starts September 2025. Applications are open now. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to civicimpactacademy.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes. So you mentioned you're on LinkedIn. What's your handle on LinkedIn?
You can find me at Christine Edwards Pitkin.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for being a guest on the Analytical Rewired. Everyone, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks. Bye.